Hello, 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 fam. How's everybody doing? Listen, it's pretty late on Sunday night, so I don't know if you will be seeing this video on Sunday night or early Monday morning. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope that you're either having a super fantabulous night or that you're having a super fantabulous morning. But I have some wonderful news that I want to share with you guys, and I'm really excited. But I wanted to announce to you that I am officially vegan, and this time I mean it. Yes, I am officially vegan. Got my fruits here, got my veggies here, and I'm really excited about my journey. So I wanted to make this video to share with you my journey and let you know how I got to this point of where I am now. And I am hoping and praying that you hear God's voice speaking to you in this, and I'm also hoping and praying that this video inspires you and it also creates a permanent desire in you to be healthy and to make good health choices so that you can enjoy the wealth that you're building. Okay, so my journey actually started in 2003. So 19 years ago, I actually started this journey. And 19 years ago, there certainly wasn't a lot of information out there about veganism. So I wanted to share my story with you and just kind of let you know how I got to where I am. So back in 2003, I had already moved to Atlanta, and several years, just a few years before that, I had started my own IT recruiting firm. And I was doing IT recruiting, and the IT market crashed. And as a result of that, I went from feast to famine in my business. So I needed to find another industry to do recruiting in so that I could build my business back up and of course maintain and sustain my lifestyle. So at that time, the medical industry was the hot booming business at the time, and more specifically, the pharmaceutical industry. So I partnered with another business owner and started doing recruiting for pharmaceutical sales reps and hospital sales reps and things of that sort, more specifically in the medical industry. And this is where I had the first exposure of learning about medicines and how medicines work, and the healthcare industry and how it works, and how formularies work in the hospitals. And that just means how the hospitals determine what medicines they're going to allow the doctors to prescribe to you while you're in that hospital. I started learning about just pharmaceuticals in general, and how they work and impact the body and things of this sort. But the one thing that changed my life the most when I was doing pharmaceutical sales recruiting is that I attended a medical conference. And at that medical conference, they had these videos that they were showing of live surgeries where doctors were performing triple bypass and quadruple bypass surgeries on patients. And the thing that hit me the most and stood out the most for me was that all the doctors were saying the same message. And they were saying that had a person changed their diet, they could have prevented the surgery. Had this person changed their diet, they could have prevented the surgery. And at that time, I was about 115 pounds. I had never had any weight issues. I had never had any health issues. And but it was a wake-up call for me, because I realized I don't have to watch what I eat from a weight perspective, because I don't gain weight easily. But what I did not want is to be skinny or thin and then 20 years from now having health issues. So it hit me so hard that I said, I need to change my eating habits so that I prevent me being that person that's having a triple or a quadruple surgery years down the road. And so I started by giving up meat. And I didn't think I could do it cold turkey, so I just started giving up one meat at a time. I started with beef first because I thought that was the easiest, because I wasn't really eating steak that much anyway. And then I started with pork, and I gave up all pork except bacon because I love bacon so much. I wasn't ready to give that up. And then I started giving up chicken and fish, and before you know it, I was eating no meat. And so what I discovered and realized was that I was hungry all the time when I gave up meat. So I went back to just eating chicken and fish. So as I was eating chicken and fish, and then still trying to learn about my new eating habits and everything, I decided that I would try it again. And so I discovered that when you eat healthy foods, that your body, because those are the foods that are made for your body processes them much faster. So that was the reason that I was staying hungry all the time, because when I was eating healthy foods, my body was processing them very quickly. And what I did was that instead of me eating 3 meals a day like I typically did, I went to eating 6 or 7 meals a day to help keep my body full. And that worked with me. That worked for me for a long time. And then every once in a while I would have a spurt where I would want a burger. And so what I did not realize at that time was that I was allowing my tongue to dictate my health. And then before you know it, I was back to eating meat again. And so fast forward, I started my transition again. And this is over years. I started my transition again. But I was still doing the transition with very limited information, because at that time, veganism was not, and vegetarianism was not as popular as it is now. So it was very limited on the information that you could get. So I was just kind of winging it with what I knew. And so also around that time, I decided that I was ready for another love relationship. And so I had started praying to God and letting him know what my heart desire was, and that I wanted a love relationship. And I remember saying, God, I just want somebody that I can go out on Friday night with and have a date. And what God spoke to me was, he said, why don't you have date nights with me? And I thought, well, I have no clue what that would look like, or even what that would feel like. But after I finally processed it, I started to have my date nights with God. And I would dress up like I was going on a real date, and because it was a real date, and I would have my intimate time with God on Friday nights. And what I discovered through this is that it was a beginning of a journey that was far more bigger than what I could see at the time. And so I remember being in church one Sunday, and the pastor was preaching, and he said something that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, God, is that really your heart? And I remember God distinctly speaking to me and saying, no, that's not my heart. That's teaching of tradition, not truth. And so as I continued my date nights with God, he started revealing other things to me that were being taught traditionally in the church that was really not truth. And again, this was just the beginning of a bigger picture and a bigger journey. So fast forward, I just had the experience of my eyes being opened in my private time with God. And it was just the beginning of my eyes being open for a lot of different things. So one thing about when God opens your eyes to see something, you see everything. And that's what started happening with me, that I started noticing things that were in abundance in African American neighborhoods that weren't in abundance in other neighborhoods, like the abundance of fast food restaurants, the abundance of title loan stores that charge astronomical interest rates for the loans that they give, for liquor stores, the abundance of liquor stores, which, you know, is a form of oppression if you develop a habit or a addiction to that, and the abundance of bail bondsmen, establishments for bail bondsmen. And all of those will be things that I will talk about in other videos, but I just wanted to show you, I'll give you an example of what my eyes were now open to that I never paid attention to before. And so that started to bother me. And it started to bother me because I could clearly see in that what God was showing me. The scripture that says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And I heard a pastor say once that if something bothers you, then God is calling you to be that solution. And what bothered me with that started to intensify to the point where I realized that there's two major things that can change a person's life and change a person's life dramatically. And that is education and money. And so both of those are actually my calling and my purpose. But so I started thinking about what could I do to kind of impact my community in those areas. And so I started doing things professionally to help provide training to individuals so they could get properly trained, so they can get better jobs, so they can make better money and have a better lifestyle and make better decisions about their lives altogether. And then I started just sharing with individuals that I would run into that talk to about healthy eating as conversations presented themselves. And what I realized is that I became passionate about both of those. I became passionate about empowering people to have better jobs so they can make more money and have a better life. And I became super passionate about eating healthy. And so I thought that that was enough. And so then drastic changes started happening in my life. So I had started my journey. I was eating pretty healthy, and but then I had slipped off the wagon a little bit. So I was not necessarily not eating meat, but I was doing it in spurts. And so I went to the doctor for my normal checkup. And when I went to the doctor told me that I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and she immediately put me on medication and sent me to a cardiologist. And immediately, fear took over my life. Immediately. And to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, I might have a heart attack at any moment. And so the fear was so consuming that I could not even pray to God. And so she prescribed me blood pressure medicine. She prescribed me, or my cardiologist prescribed me blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine, and then another water pill. And the dosage was weird and confusing because I had to take the blood pressure medicine with food at a certain time. Then I had to take the cholesterol med on the opposite day that I didn't take the water pill, and it was just really, really confusing with me. And so I found myself being constantly anxious, constantly checking my blood pressure multiple times a day, losing sleep just in fear that I might have a heart attack at any time, and just worrying about my health in a way that I had never, ever worried about it before. And then I was not praying because I was relying on what the doctors had said, and fear had just consumed me to the point where I was fearing the worst. And so then the side effects from the meds started to kick in, and I started having heart palpitations at night. I started having night sweats. I started feeling like when I was laying in bed at night that it felt like a snake slithering through my veins and going through my veins. And all of these things were just really scaring me. And then I was forgetting to take my meds. I've never liked taking a pill every day, and I was forgetting to take my meds and then trying to figure out, do I double up or do I just catch up later? And it was just all like just really confusing to me. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if I don't take these meds like as prescribed every day, constantly, by the book, I'm gonna have a heart attack. And so I was just like, if I don't pop that pill, I'm really, really, really going to be in a bad situation. And so then one day, I just said, Lord, I I just don't believe that this is your will for my life. I do not believe that it is your will that I take a pill or pills for the rest of my life, because that's what my doctor had said, and that's what my cardiologist had said, that I would basically be on these pills for the rest of my life. And so I said, Lord, I just don't believe that that's your will for my life. And I said, I know that you created my body, and you created my body to heal itself. And I said, I know that you are capable of giving me the knowledge and the faith, and I have the faith of believing that you will. And I prayed and I said, God, teach me what I need to do to heal my body. And so then I stayed on my meds, primarily because of fear. But then I changed my eating habits, and I started eating more fruits and vegetables again. I gave up meat again. I stopped eating all processed foods. Anything that came in a box or a bag, I was not eating. And I reduced my dairy intake and all of the things that I could get information on at the time. And then I saturated myself with food documentaries, and I watched every documentary that was out there. What the Health, Forks Over Knives, Fed Up, Super Size Me, GMO OMG, Hungry for Change, Sugar Coated, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And then the one that impacted me a lot was the one on Feel Rich, Health is the New Wealth, with the hip hop generation talking about health is more important than your wealth. And then I started YouTubing and finding vegans, and I watched every vegan I could find to find out what they were eating, how they were maintaining their health, and what they were not eating, and how they were getting the nutrients that they needed by not eating meat. And I also started watching documentaries on animal cruelty, so that I wanted something that I could see that was so powerful that it would be impactful enough that I could give up meat long term. And all those things helped me do that. And so then I started my journey again, giving up, all of the foods that I know causes the issues that the doctors were saying back in 2003. If these people had changed their diet, they could have prevented the surgery. So I gave up potato chips and fried foods and salt, sugar, candy, all those things that I know that are bad for you. Common sense things and a lot of things. And then I started exercising with a vengeance, primarily out of fear, more so than me exercising for health. And so I started to lose the weight. My digestive system, turned from night to day, completely changed. I felt better and I looked better than I ever had. And I came off my meds, and I continued to monitor my health. And so my blood pressure went down. And so when it was time for me to go back to the doctor, I was a little nervous about telling them that I had come off my meds. And as soon as I walked into the doctor's office, she said to me, well, I noticed that you haven't taken your meds in 6 months. And so I didn't even know that they had a way of knowing that you weren't taking your meds. And I said, yes, I did. And I said, I don't believe that it's my will. I said, I don't believe that it's my life purpose to be on meds for the rest of my life. And I believe that God created the body to heal itself. And I am looking for an alternative to maintaining the health that I need to keep my pressure down, to get rid of my high cholesterol and all those things. And my blood pressure went down as a result of me changing my diet. Well, she had nothing positive to say. All she did was told me the worst case scenarios of other people who had come off their meds, and this happened and that happened. And then she sent me to my cardiologist, which was right across the street, right across the hallway. And when I told him the same thing I told her, he had the same story. So then I go back to her, and then she is telling me all types of things. Like she said, and not only is this and this and this wrong, but you also are borderline diabetic. And I said, when did you discover I was borderline diabetic? And she was like, the last time you were in here. And I said, well, why didn't you mention that to me the last time I was in here? And she said, well, it wasn't high enough or at risk enough for me to mention it. I said, well, why are you mentioning it now? And so I went on to tell her that I wanted an alternative and asked her to recommend me a nutritionist because I wanted to use food to reverse what was in my body. And I knew that it had worked because I had been doing it for the last 6 months. And she told me that she did not know a nutritionist. And the moment she said that was the moment that I fired her in my mind. And I never went back to her, and because I knew that that was not a doctor that had my best interests at heart or even willing to work with me outside of something that she had decided that was the best treatment for me. And so same thing with my cardiologist. I did not go back to him. And so the next time that I went to the doctor, I continued to follow my eating habits. I continued to exercise. And the next time I went to the doctor, which was a totally different doctor, my blood pressure was 122/80. And I was so excited. So when my doctor told me that, I said, can you tell me one more time, what is my blood pressure? And she says, 122/80. And I said, when you write it down, do you mind if I take a picture of it? Because I want to share this with other people. And she allowed me to take a picture of it. And I knew right then that God was faithful. I knew right then that me being on meds for the rest of my life was not my story, not supposed to be my story, nor was it going to be something that I had to reverse to if I just kept on my journey of eating right and exercising. So fast forward, a few years goes by, and then I started to get complacent and quite frankly lazy in my process, and I started to make excuses, which was more self-conscious, more subconscious than I actually purposely did that. But I started to make excuses and justifications on what I could eat, and I started going back to my old habits. And I had convinced myself that I felt fuller when I ate meat. And I had convinced myself that it was okay to eat meat because when Noah came off the ark, God gave him permission to eat meat. And I had convinced myself of that. And I also had convinced myself that I didn't want to inconvenience people when they invited me to dinner. And I didn't want people to feel like they had to accommodate a special diet for me because I'm vegan, or if they were used to putting ham hocks in collard greens, they didn't have to make a special pot for me, or fat bat and green beans, they didn't have to make a special pot for me. So I justified just eating what was placed before me to not make my lifestyle change inconvenient for other people, not even realizing that I was walking outside of the will of God for my life. And so I just continued to focus on other things, and then continued to enjoy what I was eating that was not necessarily the healthiest for my body. And so what happened was my body reverted back to all the issues that I was having. You know, I started to gain weight again. My digestive system reverted back to being unhealthy. And my passion for clean eating started to disseminate. And it happened so gradually that I didn't even realize that that was what was happening. And so then one day I was listening to Tabitha Brown, who is, y'all know Tabitha Brown, right? If y'all don't know Tabitha Brown, get some Tabitha Brown in your life. She was one of the vegans that I started researching a couple years prior. And one day I was listening to her, and she was doing a interview, and she was doing one of her YouTube videos, and she was talking about her vegan journey, and she said, if your why is not strong enough, you won't stick to being a vegan. paraphrasing, but that's basically what she said. And what I realized in watching that video is that somewhere my why had gotten lost. And so fast forward up to more recently, like within the last week and the last few days. So I was recently in Carolina visiting family, and I just got back to Atlanta on Friday. And while I was in Carolina visiting family and I came back to Atlanta, as soon as I got back, someone very dear to me had a health scare. And I couldn't get to him. And I started to have the same symptoms that that person was having with their health scare. My blood pressure shot up. My heart was starting to beat fast. I got a headache, and I was having the exact same symptoms as that person was having. And so I went out to get some dinner and came home. And while I was out to get the dinner, because I was having all of these symptoms, I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to eat a salad tonight with no meat. And so I had grabbed a salad with no meat. And as I was walking out the grocery store, there was some chicken fingers that they were selling in their little deli section. And I thought, oh, maybe one chicken finger won't hurt. One little fried chicken finger won't hurt. So I bought one fried chicken finger to go on this salad that I had with no meat. I got home, and as long as I was eating just the lettuce and the salad, I was fine. But the moment that I put that chicken finger in my mouth, immediately I could feel my blood pressure going up, my headache came back, and I started to have all of those symptoms all over again. And what I realized from that experience was that that was God speaking to me. That was God speaking to me. And as I was having this experience, I was watching Tabitha Brown again, and she was having an interview with Kev on Stage, and she was talking about her mother that had developed ALS, and how her mother had said that God had called her to preach while she was sick, and that she had already lost the use of being able to walk. But the night that she did her trial sermon, she got up out of her wheelchair and she stood in that pulpit for 4 hours and preached her trial sermon. And after she finished her trial sermon, she got back in that wheelchair and she never walked again up until her death. And Tabitha said in this interview that I realized at that moment that our life is not our own, but we are here to do a job. And the moment that she said that, God spoke to me and said, your life is not your own. You are here to do a job. And that is why I allowed you to have the same symptoms that that person was having, so that you can see it's not about you, but it's about the people that I want to heal through you, in you being on your vegan journey. And at that moment, I knew that I was going to commit to being vegan, and this time I mean it. So here you have it, guys. I got my fresh fruit, my vegetables, and I realized that it took that experience of me feeling the pain of someone else to drastically change my life, and to change my life for life so that God could use me. And so here I am, officially a vegan. And there's a couple of things that I want to say in this video. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope that through this video that you see God and you see His bigger purpose for your life, like I've seen for my own, and that you understand that you need health to do whatever God has called you to do, but you also need health to build wealth, okay? And so I pray that you have a supernatural experience, that your eyes will be opened, like my eyes were opened, and that you see the oppression around you, that you see the deception around you, and that you see the lack of knowledge around you and how people around you are perishing, and that you understand and see your purpose in that. And I also hope that you understand that this video is not about being a vegan or becoming a vegan. That's my story. This video is also not about but this video is about health and you making the decisions to maintain your health, to restore your health, and to sustain your health so that you can do and be all God has called you to do and be. And also, I wanted to share that when God calls you to something, He doesn't call you to do something that you're not capable of doing. He doesn't call you to do something that He hasn't given you the grace to do. And He also doesn't call you to do something that He doesn't give you the sustaining ability to do. And it took me 19 years to come to that revelation, but nonetheless, I'm here. And so I'm excited about my own journey. I'm excited about my own health, and I'm excited about the lives that God is going to use and impact through me, with me being at this place. So that's what I wanted to say. You know, God used all those experiences to bring me to this point. And what I understand now, that to whom much is given, much is also required. And He allowed me to be exposed to all of those things to bring me to this place. And I have a requirement and an obligation to walk it out. Because, like Tabitha Brown said, our life is not our own, and we are here to do a job, and we want to do a good job and hear that, well done, good and faithful servant. So I hope that this inspires you. I hope you take the time to pray and ask God to show you yourself through this video, because that's my story. And I know that you have one, and I hope that He reveals you your own story. So that's all I have to say. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope that you have a super fantabulous night, or a super fantabulous day, or a super fantabulous morning, depending on when you are listening to this video. And I love you, and God loves you too. And we're in this thing together. And so until the next time, I shall see you on the next video. How about that? And so I'm going to have me some grapes. And why don't we go out with some Kirk Franklin, okay? I'm about to put Kirk Franklin on. We're going to listen to some Kirk Franklin before we leave. Hey! How y'all doing? Great. How y'all doing? See you guys on the next video.